I'm a not.
But there's one next to me. You got 1 minute. Who's that? Who's on our?
That's Evie?
Evie? Evie or Evie?
Evie.
Evie.
Sorry, Evie. Where did Chapman go?
She's.
All right. Hold on.
Just, if you don't mind, I gotta sit down.
But you know how we have
Well, mine did not last meeting. That was one of my problems I had too.
What happened?
I believe.
Prison. I mean, I don't know. And then selling paper, little fake sale, stuff like that. And then prom is coming up pretty soon. And we're just getting ready for that. It's on May 10th. And the theme is Mamma Mia. Yeah. It's on May 10th at 8 p.m. Just got an informal list over here. And on April 24th, we've got the Equity Picnic. So that's going to have a bunch of like equity-minded clubs, including Connect, Black Student Union, Hope Squad, and what else? GSA. And there might be another one, but those are all that I know of. And they're just discussing like issues in the school and how to make things more equitable and stuff like that. And there's some fun activities as well, like a little bingo game to break things up. Yeah. And then State Solo and Ensemble is coming up this weekend. And we've got quite a few students going there from choir and band and orchestra. And then also this weekend, the musical, it's Percy Jackson. It's going April 25th, 26th, and 27th. So the 25th and 26th, it's going to be at 7 p.m. And the 27th, it's at 2 p.m. Yeah. I think it's pretty good based on what my friends have told me. But I don't take my word for it. Okay. What else? Also, AP exams are coming up in 2 weeks, about. I believe at least my first one is on May 6th. And I think there might be some ones on the 4th. So, it's a little scary. Okay, sports. Last thing. Sorry. I'm a little nervous.
Don't be.
Okay. Athletics. Well, I usually have my presentation. Okay, athletics, track and field had a track meet on Tuesday in Portage and competed very well. Softball had 3 very competitive games this week against Portage, Edgewood, and Evansville. Girls lacrosse, which I'm on, had 2 nice wins against DeForest and Verona this week, and they're continuing to play well. Today we did not. We lost 9-3, but those other 2 games were good. Boys lacrosse had 50 games against DeForest, Sauk Prairie, and Middleton, and competed very well. Baseball had a busy week with wins over Stoughton and Edgerton. Girls soccer had 2 games this week with a conference win over Baraboo and a close loss to Wanakee. Boys golf had a busy week, taking 3rd in our conference mini meet in Baraboo, 11th out of 24 team at Monona Grove Invite, and finishing 2nd at the Platteville Invite. Boys tennis had 3 away matches this week against Lafayette, Baraboo, and Edgewood. Competed well in all of them with a win over Lafayette. And Ultimate Frisbee had the week off of competitions and is getting ready for games this week. Yep. That's all I got for you today. Any questions?
Excellent job.
Thank you so much, especially for having to do it last minute. You did great.
Good improv.
Yeah. All right.
And you're going to do great on the AP
You did
exams.
great.
You did great.
Thank you for that.
Can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
You aren't driving on the road, are you?
No, we're
Okay.
just parked in the parking lot because
But
my
she
parents
is
came
in
to pick me
school.
up after the game.
See, there you go.
You did very well, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Edie.
Anybody
like
got
that.
anything else?
Yep. Have a good night.
Thanks.
You too.
Thanks, enjoy your night.
Bye.
Bye bye.
That's pretty good. Okay, moving on. Student life survey results. Mr. Tarnitzer, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So board members, I did send this presentation to you earlier. I'm going to share this with you and with the community. And just to highlight a few things about this student survey report, we're going to give you a little bit of background, talk about the people that took this survey, and share some results and analysis with you and answer your questions. A reminder, we do use a third party for our student, staff, and family surveys. They've been in existence for a very long time, and we also actually use this group, School Perceptions, for our referendum work as well. And so very useful results. By using the same tool and by a tool that's used by other districts, we're able to not only compare our own growth over time, but compare ourselves to similar districts.
How many years have we been using school perceptions?
Well, we've used them off and on for
Yeah.
many, many years, but consistently
Consistently.
since I've been superintendent.
Yeah.
So the past
Okay.
3 years, we've
Yeah,
used it
it's-
annually.
Yeah.
This is the student survey that we'll be talking about this time. In future meetings, we'll talk about the parent-guardian survey results and the staff results. The staff survey actually is out right now. So this was done in February. This is for students in grades 4 through 12. And we had a nice number of students respond, about 89% participation rate. And it's not 100% because not everybody comes to school every day. And so it's one of those things where it's hard to really get kids to do makeups for these kind of things, but it's a very representative sample, obviously, with that kind of participation rate. You can see the grades split fairly evenly, our lowest being in for our seniors, but, you know, a nice split amongst the grades. So we've been doing this particular survey. This is our second year of the student survey. We didn't do that in the first year. The first year, we just did parents and staff. And so last year, we added the students. So we do have comparison data. It's best to look at the kind of the percent who agree and disagree. You can see the comparison information. What we've noticed with that is that a very small change in your percentages can have a huge change in your comparison. So we're just a little cautious about overreacting to how we fare compared to other districts. It's actually better to do probably trend data for our own districts and over time, but we do share that information for you as well. Note that this is all the responses across grades 4 through 12. There are some differences across grade levels and buildings, and that's buildings go through and analyze the individual school data and grade level data. The big summary, nearly everything increased, indicating the things that we are doing now regarding student behavior, instructional practices, and our climate and culture, they seem to be working but need to be continued. So yes, we're headed in the right direction, but we still have work to do, which we will talk about. So overall, you know, in these areas, you're seeing 80+% of students indicating they agree or strongly agree. And you're seeing a lot of the indexes, which we'll talk about a little bit coming up. That's a compilation of several questions into these indices, I guess it should be, above 4, so and increasing from last year. So very, very strong. And that's a form, not a from. Oh, look at me. That's what I get for doing this on Saturday morning. All right. So relationships with staff and instruction was a real strong theme. And what was interesting here is that not only do you see 94% of students agreeing or strongly agreeing that their teachers treat them with respect, but you see increases in several areas. And they were already high scores, things like teachers call on me in class. I can relate to what I'm learning at school. I feel safe answering questions in class even when I'm not sure I have the right answer. That's hard to do. You know, that's a lot to ask of a student. So the climate and culture and the instruction is just outstanding in our classrooms. 96% of our students strongly agree that they have friends that they can sit at lunch and hang out at school. Now, obviously, we're concerned about the 4%. I don't want to negate them. That's important. We want 100% of our kids to feel that way, but it's something to be proud of that we're at 96% as well and can build on that. And students feeling like their parents help them with school, 95% agree and strongly agree. In terms of rules, one of the things, an indicator that's typically an area of growth for us is students feeling that kids follow the rules. I will point out that kids are often very aware of who else doesn't follow rules and less aware of their own behavior, but so a 4.9% increase is dramatic for student groups, so that was something to celebrate.
Was that something that was school-wide, or was that specific to a building, or?
Well, it's across grades 4 through 12.
It is across grades, so you can't.
Yeah, so we
That's
could
what it
break
is.
it down. Of course, we do have that data at a building
Okay.
level data and grade level. And then 95% agree that they try their best at school. So some real nice strengths to start off. In terms of growth areas, the students saying most days I like my school, a 6.1 on a 0 to 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you'd like to see that higher. It did increase from last year barely, but you'd like to see that higher. I will say there's certain ages that is a lot to ask, but certainly something we'd like to see higher. Only 60% of students strongly agreeing that they talk to people outside of school about what they're learning. So we'd like to see that, and that's one where you see a decrease. We'd like to see that increase as well, so that's something to think about. 74% strongly agreeing that they feel safe answering in questions in class when they don't know the answer. You saw that was an increase
Yes.
over the past, but it's an increase, but it's still pretty low at 74%.
Yeah.
I would suspect that some kids, talk to people outside of the school about what's going on without even realizing it.
Probably.
It's just part of the daily conversation.
That could be. That could
So
be.
they don't think it's anything unusual.
Right.
Yeah, that very well could be. Student behavior, even though that went up, 72% strongly agree that most kids at school follow the rules. And then also concerning 79% strongly agreeing that if they were bullied, they would feel comfortable talking to someone about it. It doesn't even say who. So again, that's a pretty low percentage.
Yeah, 1 in 5 would
Yep.
be uncomfortable.
Yep. So that's certainly an area of focus for us.
And that has been a problem
Yeah.
since the 1970s as well. It's just a tough ask,
Yep.
it really, really is.
It
Yep.
is, but think of all the support programs and staff we've had,
Yes.
historically speaking, and still to have 1 in 5 kids say they aren't comfortable. or whatever
I
it
would,
is.
I would argue that, yes, this isn't a number where we want it to be. But I'm really curious what it would have been 5 years ago. Because,
Yeah.
when we talk about the behavior reports at other times in the year, we know that those have increased and that the idea is that it's because people feel more comfortable speaking up. So I'd be really curious to know what that was.
I would also be wondering if this is inclusive of the SUSO reporting. Like, is that what they deem feeling comfortable to talk to someone about it, where they report it? Or is if it's physically, like I go to a teacher, I go to a counselor, that sort of thing?
Yeah. Asking them to fix it versus just,
Yes.
And it does
Reporting
say
it.
talking to someone.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
That's
versus
true.
reporting.
Yeah, maybe if that would be reworded, we
Yep.
would see a higher result.
That's interesting.
So getting into the index, and so a reminder that combines questions into one score. So these 4 areas are really targets of our, what we call our KPIs, our key performance indicators related to our strategic plan. So these are really important areas. And you'll notice on, that 5-point scale, with 5 being definitely above 4 on all 4 of these indices. And you can see some nice, growth, especially in experience, where students are reporting feeling accepted, respected, and that they have the support they need to be successful at school. Now, I told you to ignore those comparison things largely, but, when they look good, it's not a bad idea to pay attention to them. No, I'm teasing. But certainly, that these are very positive results. And I like these because I feel like for the public, it's a quick snapshot of what our students are saying with these 4 areas.
Under environment, Aaron, I like being at school. We asked that question before, I like coming to school. We also asked, is it a safe, warm, and fun place to be at?
Yeah.
So it looks like they combined 2 questions into one.
Yep,
And
they
that's-
kind of combined all of those questions into
Yeah.
that one score, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and what a neat thing to be able to say about our kids. Most days are like school. I told you about this one. You can see the kind of the range, how you get to that average of 6.11. People are kind of all over the place there, with a lot of people in between that kind of the 5 to 8 range.
I'm not sure it's changed much since when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I mean that. I don't think it has changed much.
I'm not sure what I would have said.
Yeah. I'm thinking of my own grandchildren,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking, they'd probably be somewhere. Yeah.
I think mine like it more than I did. They really, really seem to enjoy school.
Yeah. One thing I'll point out here is I was looking at that comparison percentiles, the 27th. Our number was lower last year, and the comparison was much higher. So I just thought that was
That's
interesting.
interesting.
So maybe other people, are doing well. This is kind of, I talked about strengths a little bit, and these are just pulled out in a different way. We have the top 5 scores by average score. I'm also going to share the top 5 percentage changes. So these should look familiar, about sitting with people, parent guardians helping at school, have friends who help me when I need help. 95% of our students agreeing or strongly agreeing. Trying my best at school, which you heard teachers treat me with respect. So you can see not only in these top 5 how high those percentages are, 95% or above, but also the percent change over time for some of them. So very high and continuing to increase. And then you can see the top 5 by percentage change. This is where I might have a 72% for most kids at school follow the rules, but it was the greatest change out of any
Yeah.
9% indicator as well. And then the bottom 5 scores, you can see our lowest score is a 62%, is that talking to kids, or talking to people outside of school about what I'm learning. But also these other areas so, kids kind of talking about school and what they're learning is a real focus, and feeling comfortable talking about bullying, I think, is. That 1.44 is our an indicator that was our most, I think it's our most significant change. Let's see.
They need more grandparents.
There you go.
And I would imagine that varies greatly depending on where they are in the grade ranges.
Yeah,
Yep, it's primary, Wabisa.
true. That would be interesting to study in that way.
Yeah, because if you ask in high school, or what'd you learn today? Nothing. How was
A
school?
grunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just think it's interesting when you look at the bottom 5 scores sorted by percent change, where you have, this is our increases, right? By percent change, you have between 2.75 and 4.9. When you look at our bottom 5 scored by percent change, a 1.44 is our lowest change, so we went down by that. And then you have, 2 of those that are at 0%. They just stayed even. So it just speaks to that summary that I provided earlier, that the increases, which, you know, frankly, I think as staff members, we don't really expect all the time, given from year to year, you don't know how kids are going to be feeling, and they're already very, very high. We have a lot of slides of items analysis, and it's going to be redundant of what you just heard, but I think it's interesting in a couple ways because it helps you see the kinds of questions that they're asked, and also may highlight other things that you find interesting. So here on this slide, they're divided by sections, and this is classes and teachers, and you know, feeling like teachers are explaining things in a way that they get, that they can relate to what they're learning, they can ask and get help. Classes are fun and interesting. See those percentages, any reactions that you have there?
The third one is the one that, when I was reading it this morning, I really, it's one of the reasons why I think it's important. I don't know how to say this in a way that the public will go like, oh, but if you overstructure a teacher, they don't have time to do that. And I bet you every one of us can think of times in our lives where we have talked to a teacher, where it's almost been easier to talk to a teacher than to their own parents.
Yeah.
And you need that. And I don't know how do you quantify that?
Right.
But my gosh, is that important? There's just times you need that talk with that teacher.
Very important.
Yeah.
Trying your best at school, having a device to go online when you need to, and teachers calling on me in class.
What did they mean by that second one?
Going, I
What-
can go online or use a device at school when I need.
Okay, but I mean, it wasn't like,
Like going on a cell phone or something like that?
yeah, it was.
Could be.
Well,
Or
I
is
mean,
it like having like a Chromebook or? a
yeah,
computer
yeah,
or
is it
something?
appropriate? In other words, oh yeah, no, I was looking at
Yeah.
Facebook, I'm going like,
Yeah, and you know, that's just keep in mind that we're trying to be much more thoughtful about
Yeah.
when we have kids allowing them to use devices.
right.
As well. Life at school, this is about students treating them with respect and students following the rules. Again, that bullying one. And I like this, I can be myself at school. Would love to see that higher than the 84% agreeing.
And this is why it's so important that we continue to somehow try to make kids feel like they fit in.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they feel comfortable at school.
yep,
It's so important.
definitely is. You can see teachers treating them with respect, answering the questions. Teachers care about me. 90% there. I feel safe at school, 91%. Now, again, that's their definition of safe,
I know.
right? And certainly that is, you know, something to keep an eye on, particularly that you have, you know, a tragic incident in our community at Abundant Life, and how does that impact how people feel about their own safety? So, you see a reduction there in that one.
I think in the third one down, probably, you don't really understand how to answer that until you're out of school.
Yeah,
You know, and you look back and you say, oh, man.
Well, with the exception, Craig, I know my teachers care about me. We know one of the most significant factors in student success and student comfort at school is having one significant adult
That they
in
can-
school that they can go to. So I see that as part of that question.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, for
Yep.
sure.
That's a
Sure.
really good point, Tom.
assets. Like to learn new things. This is one getting to belonging. My culture and identity are valued at school.
That's cool.
With 91% there. I know what is going on at my school. You know, I think, you know, I'd like to see, do I care? What, that 11% that don't, does it matter? I don't know. I have opportunities to share my opinions or ideas with adults. Some do that regularly. And I love that. That's what I miss about being in the buildings, those middle schoolers. I'm acknowledged for doing a good job by my adults at school, and if I break a rule, I'm treated fairly.
I like that one when I saw that. I thought that was
Yeah.
nice.
Nice increase there.
Yes.
All right, life at school. Moving on, people around me. So we've got friends, we've got parents we can ask for help. If you have a big problem, there's people you can go to at school. And then this last one, which we've heard about quite a bit.
Yeah.
Having friends to sit with at lunch. I like this one. I like helping other people when I can. 93%.
And I think that is something we really emphasize
Yeah.
in this district. That's wonderful.
I see it a lot.
Yeah, I do too.
Especially since I've been really focusing on getting into classrooms since spring break, and I found kids helping other kids. You know, sometimes I just walk up and I just say, "What are you doing?" I'm helping them. You know, it's a common response.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful asset
Yeah,
that most kids have.
it's really fun, and I like working in groups. Not everybody does. So what makes learning hard? This is separated into 4 through 8 and then 9 through 12, and you'll see differences really. Because here, the thing that is the hardest is other kids distracting their learning or behavior. And then, you know, getting nervous before tests is a pretty significant drop from that. So 60% to 40% and 39%. But stress and not being able to keep up with homework, not getting enough sleep. And then when you compare that with our high schoolers, getting nervous and too much stress jump up to the top than the distracting students. So you can see the pressure that is on our kids. Some of us are doing this book club on Tuesday nights with some parents and staff members about this book called Thrivers that really talks about the stress that kids feel and the competitive nature and how it's really hurting our kids, preventing them from being resilient. Too much competition, you see. Just the high school is the only one that asks this question about homework and projects that are assigned, feeling like it's not just busy work. So you got a 3.34 there, and you can see the percentages. You know, I think it probably depends on the assignment in the class, but that's something we've really, as a district, tried to emphasize, making homework meaningful. Participating in activities still very, very high. Our participation with our many clubs and sports.
Yeah, and people will talk about that, you know, you have so many clubs. I'm going like, you know, it's just another way for a kid to fit in, and it's so important.
Well, statistically, there's just no doubt that students that participate in extracurricular or co-curricular activities thrive to a greater degree than those that don't, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and I remember as a coach, it drove me nuts. We have so many choices for kids, and we don't have that many kids in our school. But then the more I thought about it, the more I realized, my gosh, we give the kids so many opportunities. So it's like, again, we're a Division I school with only a Division II population.
Yeah, or 3.
Yeah.
And I certainly understand that, Bruce, and I agree with you. My concern has always been student burnout.
Yeah, yeah, right. It connects with
Kindergarten through 12th
competition.
grade.
Yep.
Yep. True.
Other questions, thoughts about the data?
Not so much about the data, more so about the number of participants. I know we had an 89% participation rate. As I look at the grades, 12th grade only had 8% of the respondents. And I think it's a really good tool to be able to get as many seniors to fill out the survey. Have we ever done any kind of incentivization to get them to fill out the form or the survey even when they're not at school? Just because a lot of these seniors could be involved in youth apprenticeships, that sort of thing, where it's like, hey, get a free muffin if you fill out the survey or something like that.
We haven't.
Okay.
No, we haven't done anything like that to incentivize it.
Okay,
But we do have
Are-
those senior exit interviews,
We
which are
do.
so awesome.
yeah.
Are these percentages for each grade representative of the distribution of our?
The student population?
Yeah. Like, is it
No.
8% of, okay.
Not at all.
Interesting.
Not, yeah, like seventh grade would be a big grade, and that is a little bit higher, but no, I would say, I think what Megan Chapman is saying is accurate. That they, they do it in an advisory for seniors, and that
Yeah.
is a tough time to get them, so you'd have to incentivize them. They get reminders, emails, the 6 through 12 get direct emails with
Right.
their individual codes, as compared to the 4th and 5th graders. They do it, they have their individual code, but they do it as a class. So that's part of their.
Interesting.
But yeah, we could look at ways to incentivize that.
I mean, even if we wanted to possibly partner with a local business to do like, here's a $5 gift card to Quick Trip, or a $5 gift card to Grace, or something like that. Like,
Yep.
Quick Trip gas cards go far, my friends.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
But I think the challenge is, like you mentioned, if they're out off campus for youth apprenticeship, they just aren't here.
Right.
Yeah, so you'd have to, right, check your email. and-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take away the car keys, that'll,
Oh, there we go. Take away the phones. Just kidding.
Good luck. Yes,
This
so
is great.
that's the student life report, so some positive results, and now buildings really break that down and then look at that in relation to their school improvement plans.
it's a wealth of data, Eric. And I appreciate you and administration and others going through all that and creating some type of action plan to continue to improve upon those scores.
Yep.
Even though we're high, like you said, we aren't high enough.
Yes,
So-
exactly, and we go through and we do study that data. And what we tried to do is, when we did it last year, there were a little bit more clear indicators of target areas. And what this year is saying is, that was good. That's working, keep doing that. Get better at what you're doing.
It gets harder,
Yeah,
the farther along you go, there aren't that many tweaks that you can.
exactly.
that you can do, and then you have to pay attention to what's mandated, as opposed to, what you would like to do.
Yep.
Exactly.
I know last year we looked at it, I don't remember if it was in the school board meeting or if it was follow-up information. But like looking at it for the trends on like either race-related or gender, if those changed at all.
We could look for certain questions. It's not easy to disaggregate the data by, different demographics. It's a little bit cumbersome. So what we would need to do is to have identified questions that we would want to separate by this, which is what we did last year.
Yeah, okay.
We broke them down by different areas to disaggregate them. By, we did gender. I don't think we did special education. We did race for a few of the questions, like I feel like I belong at school.
Yeah, like that would
Some
be
of
one
those,
of
yeah.
the biggest ones.
Yeah, we definitely
If
can
we
do
could
that.
maybe look at that for the comparison,
Mhm.
just to see did those improve too? If we saw improvements on a lot of the other ones.
Mhm.
And I would presume they have, based on the initiatives that the district has implemented.
I
Yeah.
would hope so, but
Yeah, I do too.
without looking
verify.
at the
Without the
data,
data,
we
we
don't
don't know.
know. We know how much you love the data.
And we can't make assumptions either.
Right, right.
Yeah, great thinking. Good. That's all I got.
Yeah, great work.
CISA 2,
Thank you.
Board of Control update, Mr. Moon.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Okay, just to review, that CISA changed their meeting format this year. We alternated between virtual and in-person, which really helped board members, so we didn't have to go down to Whitewater
Is
every
that where
month.
they still do it?
At Whitewater,
Yeah.
yes, at the CISA office.
Yep.
Audrey Lezendak was the presenter this month, and she's the Director of Language and in the Culture Center. And she talked a little about Title III, the bilingual and English program services, and the funding to support multilingual learners. And heavy emphasis was on professional development, development that many school districts are taking advantage of. They talk about coaching and classroom projects, curriculum design and selection, classroom and school culture, high expectations and rigor, explicit and sustained language teaching, best practices. And what's interesting with Act 20 coming on board, all students, including the multilingual students, will be required to read at the third grade reading level by the end of third grade. And we know that it takes 5 to 7 years for our English learners to become proficient in our language. So, yeah, what are other districts going to do? I think our district has a solid plan to help support, especially, not only them, but all students that may be struggling with reading. The individual reports. It was interesting, Dan Hannaran, the administrator, talked about there are severe penalties if we share information out of a closed session to anyone in the public. It's like $10,000 penalty, up to that. CISA 2 has 300 employees. DEI will continue without the labeling. Okay. CISA 2 is considering, I already talked to her about that. There's a new circulation system this year for the Resource Center, and the Resource Center includes materials, resources, assistive technology, et cetera. And I know our district historically has taken advantage of things that are available through the Resource Center at CISA. Career Day, the date was changed, now it's April 29th. Aaron, do you know where that will take place?
No,
Yeah, they didn't mention the location.
not sure.
Right now, there are 16 vendors that partner as part of CISA's purchasing options. I've talked about that in the past. The district contracts for CISA are out. 43 districts have returned them signed. And then, what I talked about a little earlier, when we talk about legislative news, they continue to come out monthly with information that the public might be interested in participating in. It talks about legislative initiatives. They list the assembly committees on education, the time and place. For example, school district reports, school policies, athletic sports. This is just one, March 13th, by the way. Special Senate Committee on Education. They talk about educational assessment programs, wireless devices in the school, et cetera. The Senate Committee on Government Operations and Labor and Economic Development. They talk about tribal resources, vital records, teaching licenses, school district report cards. On the assembly floor, the calendar for March 13th, for example, is school notifications for alleged sexual misconduct and school resource officers being required in all school districts, schools that are rated first-class cities. And then there's things that will be introduced in the assembly and by who. So CISA 2 is getting more involved with the legislative piece of it. I know Megan has been able to fill us in with much of that also. But that might be something that we as a district tap more into also. Let's see what else there is. That concludes my CISA 2 report, Craig.
All right, thank you very much,
Yep.
Tom. Why don't you roll right into your April board meeting update then?
Okay, WIFA board meeting was held last week. I was unable to attend because I was on the road, but I was able to get the following information. WIFA has a template that they use for early graduation requests, and their requirement is the student must have a plan to either have a job, participate in a college or tech program, apprenticeship program, or internship program. They have students complete a template for their request. It was interesting, there were 5 letters that were submitted for early graduation last week. One of them was from a 16-year-old who still has classes to enter or participate in, but he's just noticing the board that by next year at this time, he'll be requesting formally early graduation. And their letters are quite in-depth and quite personal, and just this one piece stuck out in my mind. The student wrote, "My past doesn't define me, but it's made me who I am today." If you consider students, you know, who are not in their public school system, but under WEVA, you know, that's a significant statement. Because what they were before doesn't define them. Enrollment right now for WEVA, the special ed population has increased by 121 students this year,
How many?
121, for a
Holy
total
cow.
of 1,240 students. That's 24% of the enrollment. It was 29% last year, so it's dropping. For WEVA, Insight, School of Wisconsin, DCA, 493 new students registered for a total of 5,066 students for this year. Now, some of those students have dropped. You know, these are students that were enrolled, registered and enrolled. The revenue expenditures have not decreased or changed as much as I reported last month. The revenue increased 9% due to increase in student enrollment. Expenditures increased by 6% because of that enrollment. So there's a 3% gain that they have available. They also talked about early college credit in the Start College Now program. And we've talked about, in fact, we have board policy on it. But just to reiterate a little, the early college credit is for students who are in their senior year and they can take classes anywhere in the UW system. It has to be a nonprofit or a nonprofit institution. Again, what's interesting is that college courses are prorated as a percentage of the UW-Madison tuition cost, and the schools or the district received back 25% of the tuition book costs. So like a 3-credit course ends up being approximately $450 in tuition costs for the district. Book charge is additional because it's variable. Versus Start College Now. Start College Now are high school students that take college courses at any Wisconsin technical college, and this is good for grades 11 or 12, and they can start that. Courses are based on the actual costs of tuition for each course, and books are at the general student rate. Therefore, and this is a big difference, a 3-credit course ends up being approximately $700 in tuition costs and books for 3 credits versus $450 about for UW. And students at DCA, WEVA, and Insight overwhelmingly choose Start College Now over early college credit. I think part of it's just the proximity, because many communities have their tech colleges there. And that concludes my WEVA report. And just to note on WEVA, whoever becomes the WEVA liaison, their spring retreat comes up in just a couple weeks. And Angie has that date.
Do you know when their graduation is?
I
can find
don't,
out.
it's, let me see if I have my
Seems like you
calendar.
mentioned that once. You were gonna go to one or something.
Yeah, I've gone. I
Yeah.
just don't know when it is.
They're great.
This year.
They really are great if you can make them.
What is our special ed, the percentage of our students? There's 24%, Tom, you said?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
What-
100%, but, you know,
roughly.
it's typically 12 to 14%.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's about twice the number. And are for college courses or the college that you were talking about, those courses, is that similar for us in our,
Yes, it is.
in our?
Oh, and you mean as
brick and
far as
mortar
kids
costs and stuff?
favoring the Start College now versus?
I wasn't worried about that as much as about the cost. Everything's the same, I would think, wouldn't it be? Yeah.
Mhm.
The brick and mortar.
And I do not have the date for the WEVA.
It
Okay.
is
Yeah,
Friday, June 7th. No, that was 2024.
I was
So,
like, Friday, June 7th is not on a Friday this year.
yes.
Saturday.
So that was last year, so I'm assuming then
Yeah,
it's
it's
probably on
6th.
June 6th.
I would assume that too,
I
yeah.
would say.
Do we know where?
It has been at Madison College, but they were talking last year at changing the facility that would fit all the
Yeah.
graduates, so they didn't have to have multiple
I
graduations.
haven't heard that
I haven't
they're
heard
doing
anything.
that this year, so my guess is it's probably still at Madison
I would think
College.
so too.
Thank you, Tom.
Sure.
Appreciate that very much. Next is our school safety written drill evaluation, notification, and review per Wisconsin State Statute 118.07 CP. Mr. Tarnitzer, I'd assume.
Sure. You have this in your board packet. There were two holds, administrative holds, one at Conrad Elvin Primary School and one at Wapisa Intermediate School in the month of April, just to make sure that students were safe and to protect the privacy of students that were in crisis. So one involved a little water event, so wanting to keep kids safe from the water, and another was a student in crisis. So.
Seems to be that water is a fun object to play with lately.
Yes, you didn't know this. These are facts.
Yeah,
These are
seems.
facts, yeah.
And that's why we need water tables in every classroom, K through 5.
Yes, that would be wonderful.
I like that.
Erin, thank you for providing those safety reports. Again, what I find most useful are the follow-ups and their action to continue to make improvements.
Yes, we've certainly come a long way.
Yes, yep,
Yep, through the hard work of many people, especially our associate principals.
yep.
Is there any correlation to the fact that we have one associate principal goes between schools? I mean, I think it's just such a good reason for having that associate principal in both
Yeah,
schools.
they do a great job.
No doubt about that.
Yeah, I'm so happy about that.
Anybody have anything else? If not, we'll move on to a discussion item, annual board development tool results.
Yes, so this is a tool for just so the public knows, this is a tool that the board members fill out every year to reflect on their own progress. So I'm going to share some of these results with you. It is quite a long document, so I won't get into all of the details with you here. The first page of this document lists the areas of growth, and it's not that we don't want to recognize where we are strong, where the board is functioning and feels are functioning strong, but we do want to keep getting better. And so what I did was I pulled out some of the areas that had the lowest average score. So this is on a 4-point scale, so a 2.5 here for a board, here, I'll make that a little bigger. Board committees being used efficiently. Just as a reminder to community, our board has a few committees, but we don't have a typical structure similar to like the village or larger school boards where you have a personnel committee or a public works committee. So our committees are more so like the joint village school board committee or the employee relations committee where there's board representation. But what we have recognized that we could do a little better job at in the future is sharing out the results of that work with the community and with one another. Continuing to talk about the community's feelings about the district being responsible with resources, and I'll connect that with one of these down here, which is we regularly communicate our, look at, I'm going to draw on there. Regularly communicate our financial needs to the public. So in an easy to read format. So those things are something that the board is focusing on. We've talked about some ways that we can improve that, simplify school funding as we explain it, and providing ongoing updates, not just when it's a crisis for our budget. A lot of these focus on legislative issues, working with our legislators. You'll notice in here, one of the things that we did was we have the results from last year. So while, let's say, regularly discussing legislative issues during board meetings is an area of growth for us, it has shown growth since last year. So that's something communicating with our legislators. We've definitely taken, I would say from my perspective as somewhat of an outsider to the school board, a significant step forward in our work with legislators, and it's just continuing that work and making it standard operating procedure. Addressing the needs of all learners continues to be important to the board and an area where you feel like you could have some some growth in legislative advocacy. So then this is where, the public would be not entertained by the level of detail here, but I think more than getting into the detail, what I want to do is just explain how these results come, how we represent them, and then entertain any thoughts the board wants to share to discuss their feedback. So there's, I think, 7 areas that the board evaluates themselves on with indicators for each. And what we do is we separate these into strengths and areas of growth based on these ratings. So this purple color here means fully achieved. That's the highest score of a 4. A green is mostly achieved. A yellow is a partially achieved, and a red is not achieved. There's several that also have not sure. We don't want people to guess. If you're not really sure, or what does that mean, or I don't have much knowledge, that's okay too. So as you're going through this, you want to see more purple and green and less yellow and red. So the first area is data-driven decision-making. Then what we do is we separate those into strengths and areas of growth for the board to review. And the strengths are, tend to be scores 3.3 or above, and many of which are 4s, and then the areas of growth tend to be a 3 or below. The next area is board operations. So this is, how we analyze ourselves, how you evaluate me, honoring decisions, coming prepared. Those are all areas of strength. With continuing to improve our orientation process, which we have an opportunity right now with a new board member in the committees. Also, culture. So that's how you work together, mutual respect, valuing differences as opinions, recognizing people. That's something the board has said they want to do a better job, is really celebrating the work of our students, staff, and schools. And this is getting back to that, really knowledge to the community and building trust in the community, especially in light of the referendum. Having high expectations for our kids. Planning was the next area, annually reviewing our plans, which the board does, both instructional and non-instructional. And then continuing our work with our local municipalities is an always area of growth, and kind of the risk practices that are involved in insurance, cybersecurity. We do a great job of that. It's still 3.3, but this was a very strong area for us, and so not much to highlight there. Budgeting continues to be an area that we want to continue to grow, which I mentioned. One of the things that we mentioned a little bit earlier was about talking about the financial statements, and so we're kind of trying to figure out how do you represent those well for the community, because we get these, we're approving these, these general fund transactions, and it's just a lot of numbers and information. So how do you make that meaningful? So that's something we're working on, you're working on. District operations, some nice strengths here, focused on getting feedback from others and making sure that the board's kind of honoring their role and recognizing the role of staff and administrative staff, communicating priorities, but looking at succession here, not the show, but amongst the board. Community engagement. I would say out of all the areas, this is the one that seems to be the most important to all of you based on this data and our previous discussions. Again, partnering with organizations, making sure that we're connecting with families and providing opportunities for people. So you see quite a few legislative things, as I mentioned earlier, in this area. Policy, this is a real area of strength. The board feels like you feel like you do very well, providing ongoing updates of policies, which we get to do tonight, and promoting safe learning environments. And then I think lastly, vision. And this is another real strong area. I think throughout these themes, you'll see, wanting to emphasize student achievement to a greater degree than we are, and kind of changing a board lens. If we can ensure fiscal responsibility, let's, focus on achievement. Any other comments, reflections from the board as you've, and the board has received this information ahead of time, so they've seen a lot more of the detail.
Well, I just think the public should understand that, the referendum definitely influenced us and how we fill this out. I mean, I know I mentioned this, that I would have thought we had done a pretty good job of presenting it, but obviously when we failed in one of our referendums, obviously the public didn't feel that we had. And I still feel like the public needs to understand that when we did pass this referendum, we chose not to take what we were really kind of hoping we'd get, kind of an ideal referendum. We took what we could, kind of a mid-level. And I think the public does have to realize that we're trying to be as fiscally responsible as we can. And we'll try to do the best job we can of trying to relay that information to them. So,
Education.
yeah.
It's always the most important thing about initiatives like this. Getting the public's buy-in and making sure they know about it.
So my question to any public out there that's watching or listening is, what type of information would you like us to share, to convey to you when it comes to the budget? Expenditures
Yeah.
or revenues? Because different people may request different things. And so I would seek input from the community, from the public, and you suggest to us what kind of information you want and how would you like it presented, and maybe even how often. I think that would be very helpful. Just to switch gears a little, Aaron, we talk about student achievement. One thing I don't hear too much about compared to 10, even 5 years ago, is the achievement gap for the different races, not so much gender. And I just can't remember if when they gave the annual update, semi-annual update back in December, they talked about that achievement gap. Can you just refresh my memory about that?
Yes.
If you know.
Yes, I do know.
Okay.
Yes, and that's part of our school improvement planning and presentations, and it's connected with our strategic plan. So those gaps are part of our key performance indicators. So I can actually pull them up as I'm talking to you to display. And we have found that our largest gap, when you look at the demographic data, is for students with disabilities, is our most significant gap. So let me pull this up. So you can see here, this, when I stop moving it, our first key performance indicator, educational excellence pillar, talks about the students who are proficient. And we focus on English and language arts because that's our greatest area of growth and certainly a skill that really transforms to other academic areas. And when you look at, this top line here is the percent proficient overall, and then it breaks it down. This is for white students compared to students of color. And so you can see this is the gap, 11 and 12%. And then disabilities, you see this, it was 36% and then 38% last year. We don't have the results, obviously, from this year. They're just taking these assessments. And then you look at English language arts for socioeconomically disadvantaged, another high percentage. So these definitely are to continue to show off my use tool. Percentages. And I would say there's two things I would point out, is that these gaps still exist, and we're concerned about the lack of progress in closing these gaps over the 2 years that we've been doing these key performance indicators. Now, it could just be that next year, what they're taking the forward assessment now.
Yeah.
and ACTs that we're gonna see a reduction. But that's really where our professional development is focused on, is reducing those gaps. And so that was the school improvement plans from this year, from the buildings, were very focused on those gaps.
I have a question about the ones with or without disabilities. Where do you split the line? Is that like students with 504 plans and IEPs, or is it ones that have diagnosed disabilities but might not be part of special education?
Yes, so they receive services for
Okay,
a disability at school. So yes, there are people that have been identified as having a disability, but do not qualify for special education services. Those would not be included.
Got
So
it.
this is when those students take the assessment, that's how you can, because we don't have that other
differentiate.
data
right,
to
right.
to
Okay.
disaggregate.
Thank you for pulling that up again.
Yeah.
That was an excellent review.
It's a way, what I like about our key performance indicators is that they're measures to measure our progress, not they're not task measures. There's outcome measures. It's not, did we do the thing we were gonna say we did, because we measure that elsewhere. It is, did the thing we did make a difference?
Yeah.
And you can see here, we still have growth in those areas.
Thanks.
And I will be able to update those, actually. The student surveys is part of those results.
Okay.
For
Awesome.
the KPIs. So when you have the strategic plan update coming up in a couple weeks, I will have the updated data in there.
Okay.
Anything else? If not, District Administrator's Report, Mr. Tarnitz.
Whew. All
Keep
right.
on talking.
A lot of me. All right, so some things to talk about. One is, you may have seen a position that's posted, is we're looking to hire a new part-time position for an administrative assistant for youth apprenticeship. And I bring that up especially for those, those board meeting fans out there that are saying, didn't you talk about the Dane County Schools Consortium and that you're withdrawing from that? And you recall that, yes, that was something that the board decided that we will be withdrawing from that consortium, but continuing to offer youth apprenticeship, just coordinating it at-house. And we're very concerned about additional responsibilities put on our existing staff, including, especially, primarily, Penny Thompson, our CTE coordinator. So this would be a person that would be able to assist with those additional responsibilities. So if there's anybody's out there, that's like it's on We Can, which is the way that you apply to work in school districts. We'd love to have somebody join us. So just wanted to highlight that because we mentioned that
Yes.
was a possibility, and now it's happening.
Awesome.
And I appreciate creating this position.
Yes,
Yep.
yep.
Because
It's
I
probably
think
overdue in
I think
May.
it certainly will benefit the coordinator, but more so the students. Because this new person will help with the outreach and making
Yep.
those connections and relationships.
Exactly. Exactly. Also, in response to a question at, I think it was our last board meeting, you asked about early college credits and the Start College Now program costs. And so, working with the high school administration and primarily Principal Brett Jacobson, he said, typically it's, a couple $100 per credit. And what ends up taking is that people typically take 3 credits. And so we spend about 5 to 10,000 per semester on these classes. So it's a pretty significant expense to the district. It's not something that you can choose to do, right? You are
Right.
required to do it for courses you do not offer in-house. So that's why you see us talking so much about, no, we offer that program here. No, you can take that there. It is because it's being fiscally responsible
It is.
by finding the least cost the most cost-efficient way to meet that program, provide that opportunity to kids.
And I really appreciate the high school administration being the gatekeeper for that, because it has to be time-consuming trying to figure
It is.
that out.
Yeah,
Especially
right.
student services.
Yes.
They do a ton of that. Also wanted to mention, just because I've been asked this question a lot about this Title I certification in the federal government. And by the way, we're talking about legislative issues at a board meeting. That's one of our goals. I'm going to do that right now. So the federal government sent a requirement to the Department of Public Instruction for districts to certify certain things related to Title I, that they would not discriminate based on protected class. And specifically mentioned what they call DEI efforts, but did not specify what those are. And what I want to clarify for people that may be wondering, well, did the district sign this? Is the district going to sign this? There's nothing for the district to sign at this point. This certification was sent to our state Department of Public Instruction. They have responded. They have indicated, they have raised questions about the authority of the federal government to require the certification. And as of the latest I've heard, I haven't checked the news today, this has not been signed by DPI. I will also say it has not been passed on to districts. So I have not received anything from the federal government regarding this at this point. So there's no action for us to take at this time, and we will see where things end up, whether that's in litigation or whatever the case may be.
Thanks for the update.
Yeah.
I also wanted to do some recognitions. We just want to recognize Justin and Sherry Dean for their generous donation to the McFarland High School Girls Volleyball Program. So appreciate them and their support of the program. That was very nice. Want to give a shout out to our very own Dr. Hauser. She facilitated an annual presentation to our bus drivers on student behavior and, you know, working with students and building just a real positive climate in buses and responding to student behavior. We ask a lot of our bus drivers, and so anything we can give them to help them have more tools in their toolbox, they love it. And they were really responsive. She said they were so engaged, asked good questions, and provided feedback. So I just wanted to compliment our drivers, but also compliment Dr. Hauser for her facilitation, which obviously led to their engagement. And I am going to share some things going around the district with all of you. Scenes amongst the people here. Little outside reading, taking advantage of a nice, or writing, excuse me, nice day to write outside. I mean, what a better thing than to write poetry outside. So with their 5 senses, you know, so kids really being insightful about what they're thinking, feeling, smelling, touching, get the idea. You know the 5 senses, I'm guessing. Yes. So just a neat feature, and really thank Mrs. Punzel for sending this in. Yeah, very own educational assistant at CPS, Miss Jen. She drew a beautiful animal for each student. Her artistic talents are so impressive.
It's incredible, that
Even for a
whole,
day, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
if you walk in that school, they're beautiful.
it's really neat.
It
And
is
then,
unreal.
That was our own neighbor.
yeah, and then they wrote a poem to go with it, so pretty special. It's a really neat thing to capitalize on our talents of our staff. You can see Mrs. Mishnick created an activity for our first grade. I love that, explorers. Noticing things about nature. So really getting to their critical thinking skills and asking questions to be scientists and problem solvers in first grade. So pretty impressive there. Moving on to Wabisa. So just
Look at
having some
those.
fun, you know, outside in the rain. And, you know, we always tell kids, principals and associate principals tell kids, it's not raining till I tell you it's raining. And so just having some fun out there, so.
They're all in like tie-dye colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, it must have been a
Apparently that's
dress-up day or
popular.
something, right?
It's adorable.
Maybe it's a coincidence. So here you have some progress going on with our middle school garden. That's through the McFarland Education Foundation and a Gannon grant. So building underway. You see some progress there building that, and love to have community involvement and engagement in that as we move forward and take care of those beds.
Aaron, will they be growing things over the summer?
I think so. I'm not exactly sure on what they're growing and when, so I don't have the details yet and what their timeline is, but would assume so, but then we get to tend to those, right? So you can see where that is, right? It's in that middle area, kind of that open area. Crochet club at the middle school. So many great club offerings, so glad the kids take advantage of that. You can tell how much fun they're having.
It's a lot of smiles.
Yeah. This is a fun project. You have Ernie Teeting here. You know, one of the people that started the money unit way back when. So for over 40 years, kids have been engaged in that financial literacy project. And kids have a lot of fond memories of it. And I think it's one of those things where they're learning through experience. The sixth grade team is really leaders in creating simulations for students. And this is a great example of one of those. So get a tour of the bank and learn how to be good bankers so that they can be bankers for the money unit coming up.
That is awfully popular,
Yeah,
and it has been for many, many, many years.
I know, and the secret is they're learning.
Yeah, that's right.
And they
How
don't
about
know
that?
That's right.
They don't know that. The Black Student Union and Mr. Ward's African American Studies class that he's offering went on a field trip to the Black Holocaust Museum. I still have yet to make it there. I don't know
It's
why
awesome.
I haven't been. Yeah,
It
I've heard
is
such
really
great
awesome.
things. It's on. I put it on my to-do list every week.
And the
do.
Daddy's Soul Food and Grill is awesome
Oh, as well. Okay, all
Yeah, you
right.
need to go there.
Some recommendations.
Yeah.
So that's great. So I appreciate, there's a lot of work that goes in organizing these field trips for kids, and I love that so many kids are taking advantage of that. Here you have the Big Little Dance. Saw some really fun pictures. DECA does that as a great activity for, what does it say, over 90 families. Wow, taking advantage of that. So I just think some of those this is a good example of, bringing people into our schools for something different, something fun, and so.
3 of those girls are my neighbors.
Oh.
Two of them.
Here you have this, somebody's in work experience serving our counseling staff. They did a little coffee with the counselors
Oh, yeah.
the other day at Grace Coffee, so you can see them there. Just kind of a neat full circle moment a little bit.
How was the turnout for that event?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't seen people to ask. Eco Club got a mini grant, so that's something really that Eco Club remains so strong. This was for solar powered electronic charging grant. So continue to win awards. Hopefully we'll win again. This is a fun one with the Autos 3 class doing a field trip to the Milwaukee Auto Show. So just you could see how cool that would be, right? I'm very jealous. So it's kind of what's new and out there, and cars, and got to do some simulated auto racing. I just want to acknowledge our very own school counselor and Hope Squad advisor here, Beth Canfield, who is a nominee for a Hopes Award for her work related to suicide prevention. So, and that award is presented at the Suicide Wisconsin Conference coming up, I believe. So congratulations to her on her nomination. And that Hope Squad is really powerful in the work we're doing with our kids. So important.
And it's been for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we have, want to recognize Occupational Therapy Month, and I love this picture. So they have fun and they like each other too. Which is good. So just out outstanding services that often go done behind the scenes and people don't
Sure.
really realize the difference they make. But I know our students and families are so appreciative for all their work. Volunteers, recognizing our, all the people that continue to volunteer in our district. Increasing volunteers is a goal of the district, including people without kids. So volunteer recognition time, just really appreciate them. Whether you're reading in a classroom or, you know, cutting out something or on a field trip, we appreciate you.
And that's the kind of thing that goes both ways. It obviously helps our students because it's giving them a role model and someone who's, you know, there's some stability there. But at the
Yeah.
same time, each one of those volunteers who comes into this school district, at whatever level it is, they leave and they talk to their friends about, wow, what an amazing job this school district is doing.
Exactly.
And that's what that's why I think it's such a wonderful goal, and we gotta keep building on it.
I
Very
think
much.
maybe that's the importance of volunteerism
It is.
is just so critical when you're whatever, raising kids or, you know, being in front of a club or an organization. That's kind of what makes the world go around,
It does.
truthfully.
And I think we probably can increase our volunteer contingent by reaching out and inviting them. I think that personal contact is very important, especially with seniors or folks that don't have kids in school.
Exactly.
I think the best example of that was probably Mr. Hendrickson, was that his name?
Yes.
Yep.
That volunteered to help out with the math classes for years and
Yes, he
years
did.
and years and years.
But I'm thinking of even just a one-shot deal, you know, because different people have different
Yeah.
availability. And I think if things come up, you know, if we know about it or others, just reaching out to some other folks, I think
Yep.
they'd be overjoyed in helping and to be invited into the school.
Well, if somebody wants to volunteer for the CEPS Carnival, that's coming on.
I will say, I did it last year. And although my face painting skills were not as top notch as I would have hoped, it was a wonderful experience.
Yeah,
great
it's a lot.
And I highly suggest
It's a
everyone
great
do it.
experience.
Yes.
Perhaps the person who was having their face painted didn't think your skills matched as high as.
I mean, and there were some like, they wanted like full face unicorns
Yeah.
and snakes. And at one point, I literally just took the green thing and I just went, all right, there's your snake. Luckily, the 4-year-old totally loved it.
Yeah, that's all it takes.
Yep.
How does it look? Great. Some upcoming events. A reminder, April, we're still in April, it is National Autism Acceptance Month, Hmong Heritage Month, Arab American Heritage Month, National School Library Month, National Bilingual Multilingual Learners Advocacy Month, and as you saw, Occupational Therapy Month. We've got field trips going on to the Dane County landfill for our third graders. Let's see, tomorrow is Environmental Awareness Day, a School Bus Drivers Day, Administrator Professionals Day is coming up on Wednesday. Thursday is Take Your Child to Work Day, so we always have some kids out and also some kids that come with their parents that work here. Equity Picnic, you heard about there, 8:30 to 12 in the Black Box Theater. I will be at a conference, so I'm unable to attend.
That's a great event,
Yes,
too.
mix it up at lunch.
Really is.
Yep, mix it up at lunch this week at WIS. Arbor Day is coming up as well. The musical is coming up. I'm going up Friday night. And the State Solo and Ensemble, as you heard about. 5th grade art and music show is next week. The High School Vocal Showcase is coming up on the 30th. May is Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month and Mental Health Awareness Month. It's also, that first week is Physical Education Week. Principals Day is May 1st. We do not have school on May 2nd. It is National School Lunch Hero Day that day. And then it's Staff Appreciation Week that following week with a school board meeting on the 5th and High School Music Awards that night. Any recognitions the board would like to share?
I have a few. I have 4. Just
Excellent.
warn you.
Sit back.
To add to your events, we also have students attending the Top Scholar recognition on
That's true.
Sunday. I don't remember exactly what gets them there. I think it's the top 10 in the class, but all of the Badger Conference.
Yes,
10
in
students.
Wanakee.
And I think we were invited as a board a couple years ago and attended. Some of
Oh.
us attended. And it's a really nice event. So it's always nice to see our,
Is that Waikiki, you said?
Yeah.
yeah. Just nice to see
Yeah, I forgot
our
about
students
that
about
on the
that.
list.
Also about volunteerism, a little birdie told me, they had Bandorama this week, and we were talking about it before the meeting, and it is such a great event. So like, shout out to the band teachers. But there were about 7 high school students who volunteered to help the 3 band teachers move all of the equipment from the high school to
Wow.
from middle school to high school.
No small task.
No, and so just wanted to give a shout out to those kids. I don't even know who all of them were, but I'm sure that it was a huge help to the band teachers. Jeff Mahoney, I think a lot of people don't know how much he does behind the scenes, so thank you for all of your work that you always do, Jeff.
Yes.
And then last but not least, Tom, this is your last board meeting. I'm gonna
Yes,
miss
it
you
is.
picking on me. But really and truly, I'm gonna miss your professionalism, all of your perspectives that you bring to the board as a former administrator, and your committee reports. It's been an honor to serve with you.
Thank you very much. I'll just have to go back down to your house and
It's true.
Bug you, you know?
It's true. And maybe we will still get each other's WASB mail. Or you
Maybe,
won't get the WASB
maybe.
mail, but maybe Education Week.
something, yeah. Yeah.
Yep, it truly has been an honor. As we were sharing some things before the meeting just with Tom, and been on the board a couple times here, and just your service to the community, not just through the school board, but through all the many things you do through different service organizations, volunteering. It's just really amazing. So
No, thank you for all your kind words. But I love the community. If you love something, you put a lot of time into it.
You're right.
And part of that love comes for the families. Certainly the kids that have gone through the system here, and the whole community. It's a very nice place to raise a family. Once your family's gone, to stay here and stay involved. So thank you very much. It's been my pleasure to serve on the board.
I think you've taught all of us many things.
That's a good way to put it.
We appreciate you
Yeah, you're welcome.
very much. Okay,
yeah, don't be a stranger.
business managers report.
I'm here.
There he is.
There he is.
So, hey, appreciate everybody staying around to come up for this awesome report. I would love to just say that part of this is pretty redundant to February because quite a bit hasn't changed. We're kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern with a few things, but we'll kind of highlight a couple great things. So we can go to the next page, slide there, Angie. So what we're working on. All right. It is, I'd like to say that resident enrollment estimates are done, but evidently they're really never done. That relates to when we're providing our buildings, just where we think we're going to be so that we can work on staffing and that. So, but technically that's kind of done. And then we just watch where things are happening with enrollments in and out throughout with our residents. But next, I think you can hit all these bullets there, Angie. Monitoring open enrollment closes April 30th. Just to remind, I have another slide on that, so I'll talk about that later. Staffing changes. Since February, we were projecting that we'd only have 7 sections of 5th grade, but we did make the decision based on a little bit of open enrollment and some of our resident additions that we will have a 8-section track in 5th grade. You had an action item. Go ahead.
What does that mean for class size?
So that would put it back to about 22 and a half. I don't have the document right in front of me, but it would put it back to about 22 and a half
From where?
versus like 23 and a half, 24.
Okay.
So actually about two. So it'd be 22 and a half versus 24 and a half.
But that's the norm too, 8 sections.
Yes, yes. If we could have a valid great section per K5, we would have 8. And I do have another slide on that as well, just kind of. And then you did have an action item this evening in your professional staff adjustments, and there is a 0.5 reduction in high school tech ed based on student selections for this upcoming year. So, and that does flow up and down as well. Aaron did mention a position with the school to work program, and I'm not sure if you mentioned this, Aaron, but that is a program that we're already paying for through the large consortium. So the dollars that are coming in and being used locally will offset that cost. So it's cost neutral from what we're already spending.
Right, there's probably still actually a little revenue beyond that.
Yes, there is. Yeah. And then we always are working still on revenue and expense estimates. So we'll go to the next slide. I always want to just remind people that our revenues and our expenditures are tied to particularly our resident enrollment. And we've covered this many times over the last year of what's happening with our resident enrollment. It is still sliding. And this is what we have to deal with for the next several years as changes in development and birth rates change.
Is that affecting all of our, competitive school districts in the area here in terms of, is everybody's flat or going down a little, or?
Yes. Yes. Dane County, even though it's the only county that's supposed to be growing in the next 10 years, all districts have open enrollment availability in Dane County. So we're all competing against each other.
Yeah.
So a little bit about open enrollment, great segue. About 50% of our slots have applications right now. Just a reminder that when an applicant fills out their application, they can choose up to 3 non-resident districts. So even if someone did choose us, they'd likely have 2 other choices. And since we're the greatest, hopefully they all show up to us. But as I mentioned, Craig, and you're spot on with the question, yes, every Dane County district has space right now. So our current grade level sections for 25-26 as planned for K through 2 is sections of 8, 7, and 7. That's versus we had this year's a 7, 7, and 8. And then 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, as we had reported in February, was looking at 8, 7, and 7. But we are going to go to 8, 7, and 8 for 25-26.
Jeff, do you know the data? You said only 50% of the slots have applications and they can apply to 3 different districts. Of everyone that applies for open enrollment here, how many of those actually end up coming here? Do you have any idea?
Well, I can't speak to each year just because it's so unique.
Right.
Each family has until the end of June to tell us if they're attending, and then they could not show up. So September 1. So this year's applicants, all of them pretty much have multiple, at least 2 districts that they've written down. And it is very geographic, as we've discussed, because parents have to transport their own students.
If they identify 2 or 3 districts, do most of them have a preference, though, of the district they would like to end up in?
Well, when we see the data, they'll show it as first pick, second pick, third pick. And so we're not always first. I don't have the data of how many selected us first. So it's definitely about geography and where families want to land in the end.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have better data on that,
That's
but
fine.
that'd be like sometimes guessing. All right. So this slide hasn't changed since we last talked about this in February. As you know, we're entering our second of 3 years of our recurring referendum. Yes, we've already almost completed 1 full year of a referendum, although it doesn't feel like we really started a fiscal year knowing that. But it's probably true because people voted in November for this current fiscal year. So the state, they're working on their 2-year budget process. Not a lot out there. That's why this slideshow is kind of a little bit boring. We know that currently and upheld by our Supreme Court that $325 per student increases annually are there for a while. I think 400 years from what I saw. So I won't be here for that in 400 years, but so that's a 2.7% increase for the McFarland School District. So we have mentioned that they have been talking about special ed funding, but again, Joint Finance has not started to deliberate on schools, and it seems as though they've been very quiet. The listening sessions haven't produced much information or media coverage, so we'll see where this happens. We've talked about the declining enrollment exemption that we had because our resident enrollment had declined, that our 25-26 revenue cap starts already with $300,000 less in revenue because it was an exemption from lost revenue in 24-25. We've talked quite a bit about open enrollment and the fact that it does have a little bit of a difference in what we see. We've already touched base on the number of districts people can select. And we've chatted about variable revenues, which are interest earnings and our virtual school, of both of which we could probably push up a little bit in our estimates for 25-26. Although interest earnings have been a little bit more volatile lately, as those go up and down with the markets a little bit. So we'll see how April finishes out with interest earnings. Next slide, please. Again, we had budgeted for 4.5% in wage changes. We are evaluating again where our competitive and comparative information is, or where our districts are around us. The Wisconsin Employment Relations Commission, established their CPI for bargaining of 2.95%. Now that is for registered unions. As a reminder, the McFarland School District's union is not registered by the WERC, so it does allow the school district, the board, and our employees to look at other opportunities. To stay a little closer to the average, as we had went through our referendum, that we wanted to get closer to the average for beginning and middle pay and even some of our higher paid, we would likely be able to do this by being a little closer to about 5%. that is helped with by the fact that our health insurance, this is probably the biggest highlight. I should have made this its own slide, but the McFarland School District was successful in its bidding of its next health insurer provider, of which we received a 4-year deal with Group Health Cooperative. In year one of 25-26, we have a 2% increase over our current plan. And we have 3 more years then thereafter with rate maxes of 8.9%. That is a win for our community, a win for our staff. And it was exciting to see Group Health Cooperative want to come back and be with the McFarland School District. We are one of the first charter organizations that started with GHC in 1976, and we were with them up through 2011. So it's been, 2015.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So we had a long time relationship with Group Health Cooperative. So I appreciate all of our employees that have went through this process. As you know, anytime you change doctors, clinics, services, your staff are affected. And our staff have been very good at understanding and getting the information that we've needed to provide them. Hats off to GHC, M3, our broker, for being in the buildings last week, working with our staff, both throughout the day and then after school as well. So again, it's allowed us to now start thinking about how we can move forward with wage and salaries that might help us get a little bit better, closer to the average in the county. So that was a really excellent thing for our school district.
That's awesome.
Jeff, thank you so much for all your work there, because I don't think the public realizes how much that helps our district fiscally. I mean, it's just, I know a lot of work on your part, and I'm happy the staff have been pleased as well.
Yeah, there are tons of people involved. Our employee relations committee of nearly 30 people, board members included. So it's been a good collaborative process. And, you know, you're right about the budget and what it helps us with. If we did not move away from 4.5% in 25-26 for budgeted wage changes, our projected deficit of 475 would be to a net of $4,764 to the positive. So the next 2 years, 25-26, 26-27, has basically netted out any deficit we would have had, which allows us then to have these conversations in May about getting closer and moving ourselves more competitive with wages, particularly support staff and professional staff.
That's great.
So good stuff. Still working on property and casualty insurance, bidding and negotiating that out. So hopefully in the next update I have in May, we'll be able to talk about that a little bit more. I've already kind of covered this with just saying where we'd be, so we can kind of flip through this, Angie. So next step, continue to watch, see what happens with joint finance. We'll talk about finalizing some salary and wage things with the Employee Relations Committee in May. And we always are looking 4 more years out. So everything we do for 25-26 impacts 26-27 and beyond.
That's one thing. Well, another thing that I really appreciate you, Jeff, is you're always looking out. I mean, you go 4 or 5 years out. So there aren't big surprises. You bring the board along. every 6 months where we are and where we're going. So, thank you.
Kudos.
Yep.
Having the home office tonight, I don't know if sometimes my home office appreciates my looking out too many years. So, but appreciate being able to remote in tonight.
Certainly.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much for all you do, John. You
Thank you.
make our job a ton easier. I mean, just, how many years in a row do you have to be right before we just assume you're right? And that's kind of how it's gone for me. You know, we worked together for a lot of years here too, and we couldn't do it without your strength in the business office.
Well, let's say if Jeff was not the business manager here,
Yeah.
our finances would look vastly different.
Mm-hmm.
Right now.
That's true.
A lot of good people there
Somebody's got to take care
managing
of
this
this.
for all of you.
Yes.
Thanks very much,
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay. Budget and staffing updates, action items, action on approval of unusually hazardous transportation plan. I would look for a motion to approve the plan as sent to us.
Sure, I'll move to approve the unusually hazardous transportation plan as approved by the Dane County Sheriff's Department and the McFarland Police Department.
Fessler will second.
Thank you. That's
I just think it's important that we let the public know this is not like hazardous waste. It's just making it safe for our kids to get to school and making sure that they're away from really heavily trafficked areas.
yeah.
So,
Okay, I've got a motion from Tom and a second from Bessler. Any other discussion?
My question is, because Bruce, you bring up a good point, the misinterpretation of the title sometimes. Can we make this document available, Aaron? Like maybe in our school libraries or at the public library for people that might be curious to know what it's all about?
Oh,
Go ahead, Jeff.
was that the Aaron or me?
Go,
Well, both.
Whoever.
Okay, from my perspective, we would be messaging out information about this plan. Number two, it would actually sit on our transportation website. And three, there's not such a large change, so that's kind of the good news. I do want to preface that although our only change is really the 612 walk zone for the areas west of Highway 51, while we will be making changes for 25, 26, we'll be very cognizant of watching 26, 27, because if you're not aware, there's quite a bit of Highway 51 work coming up in 26, 27 that could cause us to make that area temporarily hazardous again until all of those intersections are back to being safe without orange barrels. So we'll 25, 26 might be just the first year of the new walk area for grades 6 through 12, but we might have to revert 26, 27. So we're monitoring that.
I think even modifying the crosswalks at huge intersections will be a big improvement.
The safest time to walk through Highway 51, even though some of this information comes out at a public hearing by the DOT on this coming Thursday night, is the fact that December of 2026 into July of 2027, the Hare River Bridge is out. So probably be the safest time to go across Highway 51 because there won't be any traffic able to even come through.
So true.
So.
Thanks.
Anybody else have anything? Okay. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously 5-0. Discussion and possible action on the process for renaming Conrad Alvium Elementary School. I would look for a motion,
You don't need a motion at this point, we're just
or just discussion?
Yeah.
Okay,
possible action.
okay.
So just to lay out the decisions in front of you, board members, you previously voted to indicate that Conrad Alvium Primary School should be renamed, and now is the process for renaming it. There's 3 issues in front of you. The first is, what should the name of Conrad Alvium Primary School be? The second is, you've expressed, and it was recommended to you, to find another way to recognize Conrad Alvium. How might that be accomplished? That's the second issue. And then the third issue is, there is a cost associated with both renaming and recognizing Conrad Alvium. And how would you like to pay for that? And so those are the issues before you. You don't have to make a decision tonight. You can discuss it, continue to discuss it. There's no, immediate timeline for when this needs to happen. It's really set by all of you. So that kind of is the foundation for the process. So what thoughts do board members have about how you would like to proceed?
Well, I'll go first. Try to make it super quick. I really love the idea of renaming Conrad Alvium to the McFarland Primary School. Just keep it super clean and easy. And I personally love the notion that as students enter their educational career, they start at McFarland Primary School and they end at McFarland High School. Chapman out.
And I would like to just add, I just think as long as we can do it in a way that we recognize Conrad Alvium for the things that he had done, and let the kids actually, and the public, look at the controversy of, I was going to call it unjust deeds, but these basic racial
Covenants?
covenants, yes, thank you. I just think it's important that we educate the public. So,
I would say I'm also in favor of keeping it simple and renaming it to McFarland Primary School. My reasons are mainly because I think it's simple. I would love community feedback. I would propose that we have our discussion tonight and then make a decision, after we've given the public some time to give feedback. But also just to be mindful of the district office's time and Aaron's time of the work it is to put in for a citizens committee. I never remember the official name. Advisory Facilities and Naming Committee.
There you go.
And our community's time. They have risen to the occasion a lot for these this commitments over the last 2 years. And so I think McFarland Primary School is a simple choice and would be a good use of our time to keep it simple.
I'd like to share a short historical perspective on the names of the schools here. I came in 1987. I became the principal at McFarland Elementary School, which was a K-3 building. Next door was the Conrad Alvium School, which was for our 3rd through 6th graders. When the middle school was built, the 5th and 6th graders left Conrad Alvium and went up to the middle school. And Conrad Alvium became a 3-4 building. McFarland Primary School became a early childhood through 2nd grade building. At that time, we referred to both buildings as being on the elementary campus, because K4 is considered elementary. So we had McFarland Primary School and Conrad Alvium School. So we already have had that history of MPS. The difficulty we had back then when we had 2 buildings is when parents would call or for interviews, they would say, well, which building are you now? You know, because we had two separate buildings. But it was known as the elementary campus. And then when Wabisa was built, 3-4 joined 5, 3-4, yes, 5 at Wabisa. Conrad Elving School became the early learning center for early childhood through kindergarten. McFarland Primary School was for students in first and second grade. It was decided that through the referendum that we would no longer use the MPS building due to its age. All students early childhood through second grade were located at Conrad Elving School. So that's where we're at right now. But I just want to, you know, make everyone aware that McFarland Primary School, the name has been used in the past. The reason why I went to it is McFarland Primary School clearly identified students that were going to be in the primary grades. Incoming families could easily connect with McFarland Primary School versus the elementary school, whatever name it would be. So I think whatever name we choose, it should be important. It should also indicate what students may be in that building. And that's the short historical perspective. I think the committee work, yeah, I certainly have appreciated it and recognize it and acknowledge it. The fact about recognizing Conrad Elvium, it's in a school, yeah, a school is named after him right now. Conrad Elvium was more than just a school recognition, it was a whole community recognition because of his family being here in McFarland. So I think in response to what we've talked about a little, is that the recognition for Conrad Elvium could be in another place in the village outside of the school setting, like maybe at the Historical Museum, because he is a community asset, a community icon, not just something in the school. And those are my comments.
Okay. I was telling Bruce earlier tonight that this was one of the most difficult votes I've had. You know, and it, with all the big things that have happened, you know, you might be surprised at that, but I struggled with it mightily and finally decided that it's important, if you're gonna use committees and advisory, you know, groups, that most of the time you honor their recommendations. Because you put this committee together with folks that you respect and folks that you trust. And I just think it would be a bit of a blow to our community participation if we didn't honor the committee's recommendation. And I think given today's environment, I'm not so sure that this would have come up, but we're trying as a society to change. And I think, you know, a lot of statues went down. There are reasons to understand, you know, your history and how I made this decision. I just think that if it weren't for the covenants and some of the decisions made while running the university, I believe Conrad Elvium needs to be honored. I don't believe it necessarily needs to be the name of a school. We would be remiss to not at least honor him with something, given the magnitude of his achievements, the number of lives he saved, whose lives he saved. But I would tend to agree that naming facilities after prominent individuals probably isn't the best way to go nowadays, simply because of the instant access to data and information. We had plenty of data and information given to us for this. So it was just more of a, I think, a personal decision on my part. But, you know, again, you have to thank these folks that are willing to help us out with these advisory committees, and it is important, I think, to respect their work. So, that's where I am.
So could we have a little more discussion about how to best recognize and acknowledge Conrad Alvium here in the community? Because I think there's discussion, you know, should we do it in a school? Or do we do it as a whole community? Because I think, and I know that's a different question to answer versus naming the building itself. But I think a lot of folks want to see sort of something paired with just, you know, renaming the school and what else with Conrad Alvium.
Yeah, I think, kind of based on some of our discussion, the point you brought up is that once it's not associated with a school in our district, I wonder if it's more appropriate to have education about him or a plaque about him like the committee recommended, not necessarily at the school, but somewhere else in the community where it would be more widely seen.
But we don't have a right as a school board to tell the Historical Society what we want them to do.
No, but it could be a collaborative effort with the village. It could
Yeah,
be
I don't
Historical
disagree with
Society.
that, but I don't see how, I mean, other than just, we would like to make a recommendation.
And I think ultimately, I don't know if this is the meeting for us to go down
Yeah.
a longer path of conversing over how we should recognize Conrad Alvium, because based on the conversation here, it is going outside the district, and we don't have authority to make, like Bruce said, to have the Historical Society or something like that. I think we can all agree, though, that we do want to recognize Conrad Alvium and all the positive things he, you know, contributed both, you know, in McFarland and throughout Wisconsin. I just don't think that we're in the right place to have that discussion right now.
Well, I think there's a difference between sort of I think you have to define what recognizing means. Should we talk about Conrad Alvium in the context of curriculum where it's applicable? Yes. That's recognizing him, his contributions. When we talk about local history, which we do teach our kids about, when we talk about, you know, his contributions within the context of curriculum, then that would make sense. to
Yes.
make sure
I
that we
totally
do it.
agree with that.
We do some of that. We could probably do a better job of that. I think it is also, one of the things the committee was recommending is it's also important for people to understand the history of housing discrimination in our state and in our country. And so that's part of the story. You know, the racial covenants in Dane County are well documented. And now we know a lot of information about that. It's not just about Conrad Alvium, but there's a context that we know a lot about. That part is our job, I think, as educators.
For sure.
And then we'd also be able to target that education correctly amongst the various grades, because what we're going to tell a fourth grader is a lot different than what we're going to tell a 10th grader, right?
Right.
One thing I think we could probably do is, do we want to put together another committee and run this process through a committee? Or do we just want to collect some ideas and the school board just go ahead and make the choice? I fear that, you know, we're ending up with the same 15 folks on all of our committees, or at least to some degree. But we can decide that.
Yeah, I think they made the recommendation, and I think in a way what Megan said and what Aaron just said, I think in some ways it's been handed to us already. And I don't see any point belaboring it. I think we have that responsibility and to do it
Okay.
in a fair and just way.
So I think
Anybody
it's a
else?
question of, do you want to formally invite people to submit new names, or are you just asking for feedback on the name McFarland Primary School?
I would suggest feedback.
Yep.
on naming the school, but what I would really like to do is have the board name the building based on feedback that we might receive from the community.
And
Because then the community has something to respond to.
are you suggesting like a formal request or informal? Like we just say, hey, send us some ideas, or if you want a certain name, send us a name, or do we put together a specific survey or something?
Again, I'm suggesting that the board provide the name.
And have
Such-
feedback on it.
Such as McFarland Primary School.
Exactly.
Okay,
Because then the community has something to respond to.
sure.
And that way, if they want to come here in a couple of weeks or in 4 weeks, and, you know, obviously, we welcome all public comments. But then, I mean, it is part of our community, so we want to hear from everyone.
Right.
But I don't think we have to drag it out either.
Correct.
You know, I think a 2-week notice, if it would fit into our next agenda, would be enough time.
I like that plan. And the name of McFarland Primary School for them to respond to.
So, can-
If we're going to collect ideas from the community, I think maybe we could make it clear that the school board's preference is to not name the school after an individual.
well, I think what Tom was saying is that we don't ask the community for ideas. We say, as a board, our recommendation is McFarland Primary School. We welcome your feedback on the name of that school as McFarland Primary School.
Well put.
Thank you.
I agree with that.
I'm good with that.
I'm fine. Now, we could decide, we could make a motion to do that. Or we could make a motion to form a committee.
No.
I
I
don't
would
think we-
prefer that we table it for another, we put it on the agenda for the next board meeting.
I didn't mean to
And-
vote on it
No,
for tonight.
no,
But I don't think we need a
And I
motion
don't-
for any of that.
yeah.
It can just be an agenda topic for us
Yep.
to.
Yeah,
According to
Yeah.
this, we don't need a motion at all then.
right.
I think the agenda wording should be that we'd like to move forward to rename Conrad Elgin to McFarland Primary School. Come on in and provide us some.
Yeah,
Yep.
the action
probably the
item
best
is
idea.
action on renaming
Renaming.
Conrad Albion Primary School
To
Yep.
just McFarland.
to McFarland
Yes.
Primary School.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like it. Well done. Moving on. Action on second reading and adoption of policies. I would look for a motion to approve the first reading of the following policies, and I will go through them.
Is this the second reading?
This is the
This
second
is the
reading.
Second
It
reading.
should be
Second
second,
reading.
it says first
And
on here.
adoption.
I move to approve the first reading of the following policies as.
Second reading.
Second, I move to approve the
Oh, yeah, it
second
does say
reading
second, Sorry. It is,
of the
yeah.
following policies as recommended by administration. I'm going to go through them very, very quickly. 1100 district organization, 1130 ethics and conflict of interest, 1241 non-reemployment of the district administrator, 2210 curriculum development, 2240.01 summer or interim school attendance, 2270 religion in the classroom, 2271.01 start college now program, 2416 student privacy and parental access to information, 2464 programs for gifted and talented students, 3214 staff gifts, 3230 ethics and conflict of interest, 4214 staff gifts, 4230 ethics and conflict of interest, 5113 open enrollment program, 5330 administration of medication and emergency care, 5341 emergency medical authorization, 5411 third grade promotion and retention at-risk students, 5512 use of tobacco and nicotine by students, 5710 student complaints, 3440 job-related expenses, 4440 job-related expenses, 6111 internal control, 6112 cash management of grants, 6114 cost principal spending federal funds, 1400 job descriptions, 3120.01 job descriptions, 5200.01 full-time student, 8220 school day school closure.
Ooh, you're like an auctioneer.
Well done,
Thank you.
well done. I have a motion. I
I'll
would look for a
second.
second. Thank you, Megan.
Fessler second.
Discussion?
Is it
I
Chapman?
just have one
Yes.
question for Megan. Did you do that in 2 or 3 breaths?
I think 3.
I think 3.
I've always been a very fast talker, though, so.
All right. Not hearing any further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously 5-0. Next is action on the recommended WEVA Destinations Career Academy and Insight School of Wisconsin, Wisconsin Statute 118.408G, student transfers to resident districts. At this time, WEVA Destinations Career Academy and Insight School of Wisconsin are requesting approval of the recommended student transfers back to their resident districts due to lack of engagement. And I would look for a motion to approve.
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Bruce. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Discussion?
Yes.
Thank you, Tom.
For the last time that you have to listen to me. Again, transferring the students from WEVA back to their home school district certainly is not best practice. We are limited to what we can do, though, and I certainly recognize that. But again, these aren't just numbers. We have one first-grade child, 2 children in second grade, 1 child in third grade, 3 children in fourth grade, 3 adolescents in fifth grade, 2 adolescents in sixth grade, 4 adolescents in seventh grade, and 10 adolescents in eighth grade. That's, 26.
That's a lot
Of
more.
the 45 requests on here are K-8 students. What's going to happen to them? And I think we can pretty well anticipate some different options that they may move forward with. So again, I just bring that forward, that they aren't just numbers, these are actual children and adolescents, and they need all the support they can get.
Probably the children with the greatest needs.
Probably.
Because generally it's a parental issue. I don't think a lot of parents are aware of the time that's expected.
Probably, and it's very disheartening that none of those 26 students or parents participated
That's sad.
in the, sort of the exit administrative meeting that was offered to them. Just as disheartening, we have 2 10th graders in DCA, Destination Career Academy, and 1 senior in the in-school Insight of Wisconsin, Insight School of Wisconsin, that will be leaving WEVA. They're so close to the finish line, and yet
It's hard to understand.
Yep, they can't cross it. So.
Anybody else?
So that's my.
Oh, I'm sorry,
my-
Tom.
Nope, that's my response.
Hearing nothing else, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously 5-0. And now, we are
We have
to our
to,
favorite part of any year's meetings, the oath of office for elected school board members. We have 2 here this evening, Megan Fessler and Meredith Huey. Whoop, whoop. Is that close enough?
Oh, you got it right on. Nice work, thank you.
Okay. So if you would join us, Bruce Fisher, our clerk, will go ahead and give the oath of office.
yeah, Megan, let's go up in front.
Okay.
Right in front of the school district, there you go.
That's perfect.
Oh, good.
Oh, I'm getting out of it.
So, what?
Oh, wait, you're on, yeah. I would have still read your name though, right?
Yeah, I feel like we're setting up.
So, you use the cards.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I think you have to read it separately, each of you. So,
I, Meredith Huey, having been elected or appointed to the officer of school board member, but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof, swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
All right. I, Megan Fessler, having been elected or appointed to the office of school board member, but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof, swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
congratulations to both of you.
You're done!
Now, that should be Facebook.
Yes.
We need your signatures and then I have.
Wonderful.
No, I'm not done, actually.
Oh, you got another 2 weeks.
I have a red
Till
pen.
Sunday, I think.
Well, let's make sure to send you all the emails, ask you all the questions, Tom. Can you put together a Viva study guide?
Okay, and then is the rest of it you?
And the rest is gonna be.
You wanna do that?
Whoever does it will learn a lot.
I did it. I did it 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
I'd actually,
It's good.
like, Viva's interesting to me.
And it is only.
Is that it? Do we need date or anything?
No, I take care of that.
We're not voting. We're not.
We're not a voting member. No, we're either, just a liaison.
Both of you.
You too. Thank you.
Yes.
Look forward to working with you.
Congratulations.
Oh,
You will
Still
do
getting
well.
to make my vow.
oh, well, you,
Thank you. Thank you.
do I get on too? Oh, I'm so excited. Yay, welcome. We have all M's.
I know. I know.
Oh, boy.
All the females are M's.
Okay.
Watch out, gentlemen.
All right.
We're coming for you.
So we're all done with this. Where are we? Okay.
I can make a motion to adjourn
I think
before
that's what
that.
we're looking for.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mooney.
You're welcome.
And I appreciate you always making sure I stay on agenda. And time. Which
And
never.
as I watch the televised version of the board meetings, if you get off the agenda, I will call
There we
somebody
go.
here.
Just text
Yes,
Angie.
just.
Yeah.
Megan's on a tangent
There we
again.
go.
Yes.
All right,
Tom, just- yeah.
I've got a motion to adjourn, but I don't have a second.
I'll have a second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. That be unanimous, and we are adjourned at 9:14.
Not bad,
Not
You
bad.
know?
14 minutes.
yeah.
Different.
Why do you think I was the one, I was like, I'll rattle through all
We'll make it up next time.
That's right.
all the policies.
Is that